What's up, everyone? Michael coming at you with another voiceover league here. So this time we played a little Jund Shadow on stream yesterday. I didn't record the league, but if you're wanting to watch it live, it'll be on the Twitch VOD for yesterday. What was yesterday? Thursday, February 2nd. So if you prefer watching it live, you can find it there. Otherwise, we're just going to be breaking down the matches on here. So you can kind of see what was going on. So Jund Shadow is a request in chat. Obviously, a variant we've got at least a little experience with. But I just wanted to go through some of the matches we saw, some of the gameplay, give you a little idea of what's going on with Jund. A few things of note. I'm gonna save and load this deck list to Stream Decker. It might not be the exact same as what was in the matches. It might be like one or two cards off in the main. That's because after the league yesterday, I adjusted stuff around live on stream and then just like never saved the old list. So I'm trying to do the main deck off memory. So if it's a card or two off, I apologize. But I will be going over like the changes I want to make towards the end of the video. So feel free to stick around for that if you're curious of what's going on different. It'll be in like the wrap up section in the bottom. But anyway, we had a big debate yesterday before we started playing of like, do we want this to be a more mid-range Jund variant and add Giganta, or do we want to keep like the Street Wraith speed with Scourge, Shadow, Battle Rage, and just stay more like low to the ground and consistent? And ultimately, we decided to go with Street Wraith. So this is kind of where we're at. So main deck, four Shadow, four Ragavan, 3 Channeler, 4 Goyf, 3 Scourge, 4 Wraith, and a Kroxa as our creature base. Mainly the 3 elves for like Dragon's Rage, Channeler, and Scourge because they're the ones that are a little less consistent. Channeler's not always going to have Delirium. Scourge isn't always going to be online, so we don't want to see them as often as like our 4 ofs. We got 4 Bauble, 4 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition, 4 Lightning Bolt, 2 Unholy Heat, 2 Teamer Battle Rage, and a cheeky little Underworld Breach in here that we wanted to try out. No idea if it's going to be good or bad, but because we're running the Breach, we want to go make sure we got the 4 Lightning Bolts, Unholy Heat kind of rounding out our removal package. I think we had a Terminate in the main. I think that's one of the changes. I think we had a Terminate and maybe went down to 1 Inquisition. Either way, we'll see as it goes. So again, just don't hold this like set in stone. 1 or 2 cards at most. Sideboard, couple Turok, Collective Brutality, Ancient Grudge, couple Alpine Moon, whole bunch of Urza Saga decks running around. So whatever you do, make sure you're prepared for those. Whether it be like Alpine Moons, Dress Down and Grixis, Engineered Explosives, whatever the case may be, like you're going to see Urza Saga a bunch in the Magic Online leagues. Colligan's Command, 2 Terminate, 2 EE, and 2 Unlicensed Hearse, and 2 Chalice of the Void for the Cascade stuff. Chalice of the Void, another piece that you cannot play if you want to keep Giganta around post board. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's move this over. Get first match. Minimize that. All right, so lose the die roll. Not too big of a deal. Opening hand, pretty solid. Turn 1 interaction, turn 2 threat. And Jund Shadow, like, the most important thing by a mile is getting onto the battlefield. Like, if all you got's a 1-drop, it's not the best, but it's better than not having a creature. I used to have a rule in 4-color Shadow that regardless of what was in a hand, if it didn't have a threat on turn 1 or turn 2. And when I say a threat, I mean like if it's a scourge, I have to have like a lightning bolt in hand. If it's a Tarmogoyf, it's whatever. If it's a shadow, I have to be able to get that shadow down on turn 2. So like have to have fetch, wraith, fetch, Thoughtseize, fetch, bolt. I have to have something to get that threat online. And I think that's something that doesn't get discussed enough with Jund. Just how important it is to get on the battlefield and get attacking. Because you're not a deck that like goes extraordinarily well into the late game. You take advantage of the fact that like Tarmogoyf outsizes early lightning bolts. Thoughtseize into Shadow puts a lot of pressure on your opponent to find another removal spell or to make like disadvantageous blocks. So that's huge part of like Jund's potential success is pressure. Pressure. So this hand having like removal on 1 for their 1-drop into getting what's likely going to be the biggest thing on board on turn 2 is very, very important. Never mind. So Urza's Tower to kick things off. Typically, when you see just Urza's Tower, it means like they've got 2 Tron lands. Maybe they have natural Tron, but at least 2, and they're hoping to like spike the 3rd. So we've got Unholy Heat, so there's probably not going to be a lot of targets that we can heat but not, or we can bolt but not heat. There are a few like doesn't kill Karn, but we don't really care about killing Karn. Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, naturally. Go get second tower. All right, so we're cycling Wraith, seeing if we find something good. I thought about playing Channeler first and attacking. So there's a couple options here. Option number 1, I could play Channeler, go for the Unholy Heat, and hope that I just blind flip Delirium. I need a sorcery, artifact. My only enchantment's in hand now, so it'd have to be sorcery or artifact. And if I don't hit Delirium, then they just like don't block with the Golos, and I've got a 3/4 Goyf, a 1/1 Channeler, and I've lost my Unholy Heat. So instead, I'm just going to attack with a Goyf so I can Unholy Heat and finish off the Golos if they block, and then just play a second Tarmogoyf. Not like the most exciting play, but better than a 1/1 Channeler. But with all the mana they've got and 6 cards in hand, I kind of assume I'm dead. Yep. We'll scoop it up to a hard cast Ulamog on turn 4. So Natty Tron plus a Golos into an Ulamog. That'll do it. Sideboarding against Tron. Take out a bunch of these bolts and heats and stuff. I don't like taking out all of the bolts because the first one is, and I talked about this on stream, a lot of times for me, I'll trim like all but 1 copy of a card, unless it's just like absolutely unplayable in a matchup. For example, Ragavan on the draw against like Hammertime is horrendous. Between Esper Sentinel and Sanctifier on deck, Mim Knight, Stoneforge Mystic, like the chances of Ragavan attacking through are so low. But against a deck like Tron, Lightning Bolt's not very good, but the first one has got a lot of use. The first one like kills off a Karn Liberated that down ticks. It kills off a Karn the Great Creator that down ticks. You can bolt yourself to help grow Shadow, help get an extra card type towards Delirium, stuff like that. So you don't really mind seeing the first one, but what you don't want to have happen is a hand of like 2 lightning bolts, some subpar creature, 2 lightning bolts, a dragon's rage channeler, a couple lands, a street wraith, and you're just like, okay, I'm not really interacting in any meaningful way with these. So board outs are like 3 of the 4 lightning bolts, 2 unholy heat. Boarded out the underworld breach. I figure this is definitely a matchup that I just want to get like heavy pressure and not be trying to set up for like a mid to late game card because I really don't want to get to the mid to late game. Board out. I guess I didn't have a terminate in the main because I would have boarded that out. And the board ends were like the Ancient Grudge. Let's see, before I lead you all astray. Ancient Grudge, the 2 Alpine Moons, Colligan's Command, and the 2 Turok. I don't mind boarding in an EE like on the play because you can always just like blind EE on 1 to try to snipe a turn 1 map. It's not great, but it gives you something to do on turn 1 that's kind of proactive. Or you can have EE in the deck in case your opponent like Karns for an ensnaring bridge. At least gives you an out to that. But I felt like my game plan was proactive enough with Ancient Grudge, the Alpine Moons, K Command, all that stuff that I didn't need EE. Get out of here. All right, so opening hand. Double Channeler, Shadow, Ragavan, Alpine Moon. Like I said, game 1, the important part is getting onto the board. So the fact that we've got like a turn 1 Ragavan, which is best turn 1 play we could possibly have, like getting the mana advantage on turn 2 and 3 against Tron is huge. When I say turn 3, I mean on the play, us having access to like 5 mana tops on turn 3 while they still have 2 is really big because that allows us to like double spell a lot more often. So we're gonna keep this one. Like just the fact that we have Alpine Moon as a way to disrupt Tron is really nice. Or if we think that our opponent is like slowing down a little bit, maybe going for a blast zone, that we can Alpine Moon blast zone. Water. And kind of what I'm basing that Alpine Moon name off of is if my opponent has turn 3 Tron, I'm naming Blast Zone. Or I'm naming one of the Tron lands. If they do not have turn 3 Tron, I'm likely naming Blast Zone. So like they lead on basic forest, means that this Alpine Moon is more likely than not going to be naming Blast Zone because my clock isn't going to be fast enough to kill them on my turn 4. But I don't want to show Alpine Moon yet, so Fetch Land's a really nice pickup because that's going to let me get down my shadows. Chromatic Star sees Goyf, so we'll go ahead and pop that for a green. I did mention the sequencing here on the live video. Because I was casting one of their egg effects, I know that I can immediately crack it and draw what I see, so I don't have to fetch and shock before I get my surveil triggers. And they can't play and crack a blast zone this next turn, so we're just throwing everything out here. And Battle Rage actually makes it lethal because Battle Rage on the Goyf grows the Goyf to a 4-5. So 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 coming at them. And it's really nice that we get to win this game without showing Alpine Moon. They also just kept like a horrible hand, but I think they were on a pretty deep mold, like a mold of 5. But I'm usually a pretty big proponent of like waiting as long as you can to show your hate piece, because maybe that makes your opponent like sideboard incorrectly in game 3. Again, pretty strong opening hand. Got the Ragavan on 1 to help get the mana advantage. We could go like Goyf Thoughtseize on 2 or Goyf Alpine Moon if opponent's going to have turn 3 Tron. We find another land, we can like turn 3 kick a Turok. All right. So they have the Blast Zone, which again, if you follow my Tron flow chart, have Tron, Alpine Moon, named Tron Land. Don't have Tron, Alpine Moon, named Blast Zone. So we're gonna see how that works out here. Here's a Thoughtseize. I can do this safely because I know they can't get Tron online turn 3. We see some eggs. We see Platinum Angel, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Ulamog. Both of these being turn 4 plays against a hand that doesn't have turn 3 Tron means I'm more than likely to name or take like something on the lower end. And since I don't think I have anything in the deck that actually kills Platinum Angel post board, I might have like one actually see. I've got, yeah, I'd have to double up a bolt with something, and I don't have anything to double up the bolt with. So we're going to take Platinum Angel because we cannot actually kill that card. And we'll get down Tarmogoyf that gets a little chunkier because we put creature and artifact into their yard. They've got a power plant. Go ahead and Sylvan Scrying for the mine. All right. So now I'm making a judgment call off of my clock. Because I've got lethal with my 2-drops, I don't actually care about Blast Zone blowing up my 1s now. So I'm just going to play out the Alpine Moon, name the Tron land, the one that they've got, not either the ones in play. So that if they do have like a Nature's Claim, they have to play their Tron land, use it for green to blow up the Alpine Moon, and then they only have access to 3, 4, 5, 6 instead of like Ugin mana. Like if I name Blast Zone, then there's always the chance that they go like Tron land, Blast Zone for green, blow up Alpine Moon, and they've got 7 mana to cast something. But we'll just Alpine Moon, name the missing Tron land. So if they want to put a Blast Zone, they're just dead on board. All right. So my flow chart needs a little update. It's not if they have turn 3 Tron, it's more just like if they have Tron in general. Name Tron. They don't have Tron, name Blast Zone. Doesn't have to be turn 3, but you get the idea. Either way, that's the power of getting your opponent unalive quickly. Match number 2. Lose another die roll. Fine opening hand. We've got some threats. Got interaction for them. Wraith to help get our life total down if we need it. So turn 1, Emiria. First thoughts are something unfair like Charbelcher or oops all spells if there's still like some variant of that deck running around. And then I know there's like random Amiria control decks that pop up every now and then, but other than that, I don't have a lot of good guesses. So we're just gonna play a Ragavan. A Ganjo. So that makes me think some sort of taxes, which Thalia kind of gives that away. This is to get our fetching out of the way in case of Leonin Arbiter. Skyclave Apparition means almost assuredly some form of taxes. Evoke Solitude. Yep. Emirate the Solitude. Yep. And we'll scoop it up there because as soon as we play anything out and they attack in with the Solitude, we lose the ability to play the Scourge. Even if we like play Channeler. If we played Channeler, Battle Rage Channeler, and are able to flip over Delirium, then maybe we have a chance. So maybe it's worth it to play it out to show them that. But or wait, no, they've got the ephemerate on suspend. Never mind, that's why we scooped. Because if I play the Channeler, play the land, whatever, pass, then they just ephemerate the Solitude on their upkeep, exile the Channeler, and then I've got nothing going on. If I play the Scourge next turn, they attack in, and everything dies. Yeah. Taxes is not a very fun matchup. I think I even made a comment during this one of like how I'd rather play against Tron again than play against Taxes. Okay, so Turok, not a crazy threat, but against a mono white deck, just playing out turn 2 Turok and like keeping the board clear can often be good enough. Dodges Skyclave Apparition, Solitude, March of Otherworldly Light, Burrington Forge Tender, like just nothing touches it. So in a hand like this, where I've got Turok backed up by just a bunch of disruption, I think I'm going to lean into giving that a shot. Sideboarding against taxes before I forget. Board out some street wraiths because life total is going to matter between like flicker wisps and thalias and stuff getting in. Like you're going to take some damage, so I don't want to overdo it. Some hand disruptions coming out, keeping in Thoughtseize because it hits Solitude. If they play Stoneforge Mystic, it's like Cauldra, Batterskull, that kind of stuff. Board out Battle Rages because I don't want to get 2-for-1 by a March or a Solitude. And then ended up boarding out a single Dragon's Rage Channeler because usually they're bringing in like Rest in Peace and random big grave hate pieces like that. So I don't want to be flooded on things that rely on the graveyard. I figured that Underworld Breach could be used to like breach back a removal spell or two in the mid game. That's probably good enough. Boarded in like the 2 copies of Engineered Explosives, K Command. These two, what are these two? Turoks. Yeah. All right, so let us bobble ourselves. We see a Scourge. I'm not like super invested in the Scourge because I don't want to just like throw a bolt at my opponent. Turok's a little bit slower than a 1-drop at getting it online. I already have like my turn 2 play lined up. If I had a third land, then maybe I would consider the Scourge so I could like double spell on turn 3. But Scourge is just like one of the weaker threats in the matchup, so I'm not just like giddy to have it in play. All right, so we kill the Giver with an Unholy Heat. Stoneforge gets a Batter Skull. If you've watched one of my live streams, you know that I like absolutely hate the play of Stoneforge getting like some big equipment, because there's so many games where this is just a dead piece of cardboard. Like, you'll see it all the time out of Hammer. They'll turn to Stoneforge and just go get like a Cauldron. And all I can think is like, okay, I one for one the Stoneforge with something, and now you're just stuck with a Cauldron hand. Like, I get that it's still Stoneforge draw a card, but there's so many times that you could have just gone and gotten like a Shadow Spear and had a good card on board and like actually get the value out of that draw one. But like in this case, they go and get Batter Skull. So if the game's over before Batter Skull matters, then like you got no value out of this Stoneforge Mystic. They're gonna start aggressively Field of Ruining me. I also noticed this card, Demolition Field. It's like a fixed Field of Ruin. So Field of Ruin specifies that when you blow up a non-basic land an opponent controls, everybody searches their library for a basic land. So like in a commander pod, I blow up your land, all the other players get to search for a basic land as well. Demolition Field fixed that and says like, hey, if I destroy one of your lands, the land's controller gets to search for a basic land, and then I get to search for a basic land, and then nobody else does. So I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know how big of a deal Field of Ruin is in Commander. If you play a bunch of Commander and you see it a lot, feel free to like let me know down below. Decide to go ahead and go to the untap, go to my turn, so that one, I can attack in, and if they block with this giver, I just get a free removal spell. Two, if they don't block, then I get to Channeler and Lightning Bolt and get my Surveil trigger. Keep an EE. I could like pass and bolt on their turn sometime, but ultimately I'm going to have to bolt the giver. Anything else, they just get to like protect, so it doesn't matter. So Skyclave Apparition. For a while there, I had a lot of fun playing Gurmag Angler in Modern when Skyclave Apparition was extremely popular in like the Heliod decks. Gurmag Angler just dodged it, and then Gurmag got to enable Stubborn Denial against the Tybalt's Trickery decks. It was a lot of fun. All right, so we see an Underworld Breach on top. We'll keep that because that's just like multiple removal spells at this point. EE on 2 or EE on 3. Never mind. Didn't want to shuffle because we knew about the breach on top. All right. So before I start the breach turn, take a moment, pause the video, see what you would do. Uh, for me, my plan initially is just like breach, kill both their dudes, get a couple surveils on Channeler, maybe draw a card off Bobble, because I can go Lightning Bolt a dude, exile 3 lands, put a card back in the yard, Lightning Bolt again, exile Bolt land, whatever, put a land back in the yard, Bobble, exile, Bolt, whatever I put in the yard, and like the last card. and I get a few surveil triggers. I get their board cleared. I make a couple 1 or 2/2, and that token dies. So whatever. Um, that was kind of like my initial plan. I could also go bolt face, put them down to 6. Turok puts them down to 2, and they're just like dead on board to the Turok. Extra lightning bolt doesn't really matter. It kind of matters because if I decided to bolt face, then I could always use that bolt on top for lethal. But I also realize that if I flip over delirium like that, then I just get to bolt face, attack for 5, and then bolt face again post combat. So realistically, odds were like fairly decent that I'd hit multiple bolts. But they do just have the solitude. But having the solitude is fine because like I can bolt face here, put them down to 2. I've got a lethal Turok and I'm not dead on the crackback. So we'll go with that plan. I think this is a scoop lag. Yeah. Yeah, opponent scooped it up here. Not a lot of ways to deal with the Turok there, but just keeping in mind that that turn 2 Turok ended up getting like 10 points of damage by itself. So if you've got Turok in your hand, don't be afraid to just throw it out there on turn 2. Game 3. It's not an exciting opening hand. Like Ragavan gets stonewalled by Thalia really easily. But I do have a couple bobble redraws and like a thought seize to help find some interaction for Thalia. Crap. The old Burrington Forge Tender, eh? And a Thalia on top. Like, we call this not looking good for the home team. Second Thalia in hand, so they just kind of had like Thalias for days. Cauldra doesn't matter. Amiria's call's there. Ephemerate. Decided to take the Amiria's call. Like, I don't care about the Cauldra. They've got backup Thalia, so taking the first one doesn't really do much for me. Ephemerate is a pretty juicy target, but if they ephemerate, they're like using up all their mana, and ephemerate doesn't dodge engineered explosives, so there's field and Thalia number 1. They're drawing a Flicker Wisp off the top, so that they can't cast that. Terminate's good, but we're getting a little mana flooded. And play out this EE on 1 because like I need to get the Forge Tender off the board. Forge Tender prevents all my red base removal, not terminate, but like lightning bolt, unholy heat, all that stuff, and it also just stonewalls Ragavan. So Scourge is pretty whatever. Love Forge Tender, get Ragavan down. See what they do. Ow. Alright, so they find Aganjo. Flicker Wisp to blink the Thalia. We're going to terminate the Thalia. I'll offer up the trade with the Ragavan. It's not the most exciting trade in the world, but I've got like the second Thalia answered with the EE, so I kind of just want to like hit my opponent. Then could play out Scourge, but just like a 2/2 Scourge isn't really doing much for me. They play this beautiful, beautiful Skyclave apparition that's going to set up this EE on 3. Take that, Ephemerate. So I know their hand perfectly still. It's Thalia, Ephemerate, Cauldra. Thalia holding up Ephemerate. But we don't really care about Ephemerate because we're just going to like try to power through. If they want to like block and blow the Ephemerate bouncing the Thalia, sure. If they don't, we're just going to get some rather large lads down. And opponent scoops. So we know they had Ephemerate, Cauldra, Unknown. I'm guessing the Unknown just like was another land or something. And this kind of shows what I mean about if they Stoneforge for Cauldra or something and the Stoneforge dies, then this just like sits around in hand doing nothing. But if they Stoneforge for like a Sword of Fire and Ice, I don't know if they're running that. I feel like if you're running Stoneforge, there is no reason whatsoever to not run a Sword of Fire and Ice somewhere in your 75. And if you're running it, like, tutor it up aggressively because it just makes every threat you have a must kill thing and blanks half the removal in the format. Okay, here's my must kill thing that doesn't get hit by Lightning Bolt, Unholy Heat, Fury, Terminate. All right, round 3. What do we got? Opening hands, reasonable. Channeler into Goyf. Kroxa in here somewhere. I would like to see more interaction, but at the end of the day, it passes the criteria of like I get a threat on board. Mountain Ragioli. So because they got basic Mountain off the Scalding Tarn, I'm assuming this isn't a Murktide deck. Usually Murktide was running like all blue sources, no actual basic Mountain. They want to be able to like Murktide plus Counterspell, Murktide plus Archmage's Charm. Bolt, hit me with a Ragavan. Ragavan sees a bauble of mine. So Synthesizer means it's the mono red artifact deck. This is only the second time I've played against this deck, so I'm still like trying to get my bearings on what I want to do win against it. Goyf double or Ragavan doubled up with a bolt. All right, so we've got Underworld Breach, which like I said, I've only played against this deck one time, and the one time I played against them, they weren't running Underworld Breach. They were running Urza's Saga and like Relic of Progenitus in the main. So every time I see the deck now, I'm having to like constantly update my my approach to it. Take the lightning bolt so they can't just bolt down my shadow. Dash Ragavan, decided to just take it. And of course they hit a Tarmogoyf, which is really bad for me. Brooks is going to knock a card out of hand. All right, so pretty on the back foot here. It sets up their board a little bit. We can escape Kroxa to get rid of this Underworld Breach in hand. So that's a big plus. Also get to escape it before Urza Saga gets a piece of Grave Hate. So, like, I'm not in a great spot, but I'm not just, like, dead in the water. And then they just top deck another Underworld Breach. And nothing matters. So, with that Breach, they've got 3 red available. They've got Lightning Bolt. 1, 2, 3 sets of 3 for Lightning Bolt. So, I'm dead to the Breach. That right there is the kind of situation that I think is likely to get Breach looked at for a banning. Do I think it's ban worthy? I don't know, but it effectively being like a 1-card combo is a pretty big deal. Sideboarding, board out all my wraiths. Very, very much a life total matters game since they're running like Galvanic Blast, Shrapnel Blast, Lightning Bolt. Board out some Thought Seizes and Inquisitions because they're playing to the board everything they got pretty aggressively. And then I boarded out some Dragon's Rage Channelers because, like I mentioned, I played against the deck a couple days ago. And when I did, it was just all like Urza's Saga for Grave Hate. I think they played 3 separate Urza Sagas. Each one got either a Relic of Progenitus or I think one got a Soul Guide. But they got 3 pieces of Grave Hate off their 3 relics. So I really felt like my graveyard was in jeopardy. Boarded in basically 90% of the sideboard. Like 2 EE, K Command, Ancient Grudge, a couple Alpine Moon. Boarded in the 2 Chalice of the Void. Figured just like I saw Mishra's Bauble and what's it called? Oh, what is the name of it? Mox Amber. Boarded in the 2 Unlicensed Hearses and a command. Or no, Collecting Brutality. So, Brutality, Ancient Grudge, 2 Alpine Moon, K Command, 2 EE, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, 2 Chalice of the Void. In hindsight, I should have realized that this was just like a combination deck. Like I said, the first time I played against the deck, I did not see Underworld Breach at all. And they were like tutoring up Relic of Progenitus aggressively. So I figured there was no way that they could be an Underworld Breach deck if they're just tutoring up Relic and popping it. Get my life total down so I get these shadows online. Ragavan hitting Thoughtseize, name a more iconic duo. Alright. Gotta play out a couple shadows. And they just have double removal spell for them. Tap correctly. Kill Ragavan, get back a shadow. Shadow's now outside of bolt range, shrapnel blast range. Not outside of shrapnel blast. Galvanic blast range it was out of. Like shrapnel blast looking super good there. Like, okay, or synthesizer plus shrapnel blast. Like, let me pay 1, hit the land drop I need, shrapnel blast away the synthesizer, kill the shadow, flip over a channeler. I get to go ahead and play that. Like, that's a pretty nasty combination. I could have played out the shadow and held up the peatland to try to grow shadow outside shrapnel blast range. But if they have another shrapnel blast and an artifact, they just kill me in the face. So not much of a reason to go all out there. And this was the moment of like, oh, this isn't the straight artifact deck. This is just somebody that jammed together the mono red artifact deck with Grinding Station Breach, which I should have recognized game one because I saw Underworld Breach and I saw Mox Amber. So I should know that they just have Grinding Station in the deck. And if I had known that, then I would have known that so I was dead to the flyers in the air regardless. I thought about just attacking to try to get the chump block there. I figured if they chumped, maybe they'd find some reason to not attack with the channeler on the way back, but dead on board. Doesn't really matter. Um, if I had realized that this was just like an Underworld Breach grinding station deck, then I probably would have kept in like a lot of uh, my solitaire cards, like Street Wraith, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Channeler. Some number of like all those would have stayed in because I would just like treat this as a combo matchup and I want to kill you, not as a like mid-range matchup where I need to keep myself from dying. If that makes sense. All right, match number 4. What do we got? We're on the play. Opening hand's fine. Like we've got a threat on one. We've got Mishra's Bauble to help surveil and try to find a second land. If we find a second land, we've got Goyf. Like we're gonna have the surveil is 1, the Bauble trigger is 2, the Street Wraith is 3, the next draw is 4. So 4 looks at another land. And if we find like an instant, a lightning bolt or something off one of these, then we could potentially get another shot by lightning bolting on our upkeep. So Fatal Push, main deck, Nihil Spellbomb. I don't know what that signals to me. So because I have the Wraith, I can bobble before I fetch. So if I see something I want, I can Street Wraith into it and still draw it. And usually if I have the option to double spell early, I'm leaning towards that. Just because being able to do multiple gameplay actions gives me a mana advantage over my opponent. We can talk about that decision a little bit. So, Fatal Push, I saw off the bauble, so I knew they had that. Uh, Goyf, Confidant, both very reasonable threats. Soul Diviner, if you haven't seen this card, you can tap it, remove a counter from an artifact, creature, land, or planeswalker to draw a card. So if you have an Urza Saga, you can tap Soul Diviner, remove a counter off of it. The saga replaces itself the next turn. And you can just like repeat that. So you can like make a construct, remove a counter. The next turn, Soul or Urza Saga ticks back up to 2. Make a construct, remove a counter, and just keep getting a construct and draw a card every turn. It's something. But decided to take the Fatal Push because if they want to snap push on 3, like that's not the most mana efficient play in the world. So attacking with Channeler. Scourge is a little chunkier. Play out the peat land instead of the catacomb so that I can go ahead and start like pinging away at my life total. Basically, the earlier you get down peat land, the more damage it does to yourself in the long run. So, pretty useful just to go ahead and get that out of the way. Top deck another fatal push. We see a Goyf on top of our library, which is fine. We'll just take Snapcaster Mage so they don't get a free removal spell again. They Spellbomb us to get the free block on the Channeler. We'll get some extra damage with our Shadow. Play out Goyf. So we're not dead to an instant speed removal spell since they already have instant in their yard. Did have to shuffle away the Goyf that was on top, but that's fine. Now we're feeling pretty good. And opponent scoops it up. We know they had like another Soul Diviner, a Dark Confidant, uh, then 2 unknowns. They seem to be missing their 3rd land drop, so we'll take it. Sideboarding against Sultai stuff. Boarded out a bunch of hand disruption because it's like a hand disruption mirror, and I want my top decks to be better. Team of Battle Rage coming out because they've got Fatal Push, Snapcasters. They don't want to get 2 for 1. A couple Wraith out because I'm guessing it's just like a grindy Urza Saga deck, and I don't want to be doing too much to myself early. Like in matchups where you're getting to a mid to late game where things are really reactive and back and forth, the early life total damage can really add up. So things that are just like automatic life loss aren't as necessary. Boarded in a couple copies of Terminate, the 2 engineered explosives, the 2 Alpine Moons. I didn't see Saga, but I can't think of a lot of reasons they'd run Diviner or Soul Diviner outside of it. And K Command. An unlicensed Hearse. Hearse because of Snapcaster and Goyf and stuff like that. Opening hand does not have red mana, but we've got Hearse, we've got Goyf. We're on the draw, so we could possibly find red mana on turn 1. Soul Diviner. Combo assembled. So we did find our red mana. Opponent's got Soul Diviner, Urza Saga going. Personally, I've never played with a deck like what they're doing. And all this is going to be is just a bunch of like. I was not expecting Aether Vial. It's another card that I guess ticks up every turn to put a counter for your Soul Diviner. But I've never played a Soul Diviner deck. So I don't just like know for sure how good or how bad the card is. But like here you can see I did not respect it. I could have thrown the Terminate at it and just like, yeah, whatever. Soul Diviner, who cares? Probably wrong. They're going to pop their Spell Bomb to keep me from growing my Hearse. We're definitely seeing the downside of Scourge of the Skyclaves here. Just our opponent like not lowering their life total at all. So Scourge is pretty stonewalled. But the Soul Diviner did end up drawing them like 4 cards here. So that was pretty good. And I don't know why they didn't just equip Shadow Spear and attack. Like, they strap up a Tarmogoyf and attack, and no matter how I block, I lose both of my Scourges. So even if you have to trade, like, a Goyf for whatever, like, if they strap up Shadow Spear and Goyf and attack, and I block Goyf, Scourge, Scourge, then you're still just trading, like, Goyf for a Goyf and double Scourge, and, like, that's pretty good. So scoop it up after that. If I EE on 0, they still got these big Goyfs. If I EE on 2, then I blow up my Scourges and Hearse in the Goyf, and all of it looks terrible. So I clearly did not respect Soul Diviner enough that game. I didn't see removal the first few turns, but at the same time, like when I did have Terminate, I could have killed it and I didn't. I guess let's pull up game 3 first before I start giving commentary on the Soul Diviner deck. Um, okay, so my 2 cents is if you're playing Soul Diviner and you're winning games, it's probably just because you're playing like Urza's Saga, Tarmogoyf. We saw Elvish Reclaimer to get sagas and like Snapcaster and removal and stuff. Like, you're just playing a bunch of good cards. I don't know if Soul Diviner fits in that bill because it's like it's 2 mana, draw a card, like 2 mana, tap, draw a card every turn, which is fine. Like it's got the fun little combo with Aether Vial and Urza's Saga, but I don't know if that's good enough. Like, there's a reason Soul Diviner hasn't won tournaments, right? Or like top 8 in tournaments, or top 32 tournaments, or like shown up anywhere ever. So I think if you enjoy playing the deck and you want to play Soul Diviner, then absolutely play the deck, play Soul Diviner, go crazy. But I think if you're playing it and you enjoy it, you probably understand that the games that you're winning, uh, Soul Diviner seems pretty fun. Draw a couple extra cards, looks cool. But you're probably winning games just because you have Urza Saga in your deck. Like, the Soul Diviner part probably doesn't matter. But I don't know for sure. If anybody's got experience in Soul Diviner, let us know. Worst possible start for us to have Channeler staring down an Elvish Reclaimer off a basic forest. We are praying to the old gods for a land here, because if we hit a land and we get to just like K command, kill Reclaimer, kill Shadow Spear, that feels very, very nice. But unfortunately, we do not. There's our land. EE on 1, just because at this point, like, it's a 2 for 2. And I needed to do something with my mana. Alright. So I hatch up this great idea of I'm going to blow up EE on 1. They're going to respond by Reclaimer, sack a land, go get a Saga. And then I'm going to play the Alpine Moon afterwards and just blow up the Saga and get like my Strip Mine. So they sack a forest, go get Saga, blow up the boards, and then we get 2 Alpine Moon named Saga. And I'm like, oh crap, they have a spell pierce here. Take out that. Soul Diviner is much less scary if they don't have the whole saga thing going on. Some dudes. All right, fatal push. That's good. Second fatal push. That's a little unfortunate. We'll attack because we can always K command to shoot them if they decide to block. I thought about getting back Shadow, but Channeler's actually bigger at the moment and being able to fly over like Soul Diviner or whatever. So if I'm keeping Scourge around, then Channeler might be able to like fly over a Goyf or something and hit them while Scourge is attacking. But nope, they just have a third fatal push. Triple push. Really hope they don't find any way to get Soul Diviner going here. Land is yuck. All right. Who's ready for Michael to top deck like a god? What do we need here? We need like a Death Shadow or an Unholy Heat for the Giganta, a Terminate for something. Any of those cards would be pretty good. Another threat would be fine. Well, doesn't deal with our Giganta problem, but it does deal with the Soul Diviner, so flip over a land from our yard. Alright. Shadow Goyf Scourge removal spell. Got a bunch of live draws. Nice. Like, the realistic number of live draws we have is actually fairly high. Because even if we don't find something that stonewalls Giganta, so like a Shadow, Goyf, Scourge of the Skyclaves, a Ragavan can still like chump block. An Unholy Heat or a Terminate kills the Giganta, gets us an extra Surveil trigger. So we did have a decent number of live draws. So Unholy Heat, kill the Giganta. This is so, however we attack, if we attack with Shadow, they have to chump block something. We're not dead on the crackback. Assuming they don't have any like pump spells in their deck. Then they attack, put us to 1. So I have to assume this means they just found another threat. And they're just hoping to like block the Shadow this turn and attack back next turn. But we topped a Ragavan because we're smart and predicted this. And we just get to attack in. I don't know if I like the attack there with Confidant. But at the same time, like, I don't think there's anything you can do because I'm going to attack with a Channeler next turn. I have to. My guess is they don't have like a Bajuka Bog in the deck because that would have been really good to be able to like play out Confidant, hold up Reclaimer, block Shadow, search up Bajuka Bog, blank the Channeler, and then have Confidant active. But the attack makes me assume they didn't have a Bajuka Bog. But either way, dash Ragavan, get to attack in for lethal, and on to match 5. All right. Winning a die roll, always nice. No landers, not nice. I'm sure there's like somebody out there that's done the math on how many Street Wraith you need in your opening hand to consider keeping a no lander. But for me, it's like 2 wraiths on the draw, and I'll consider it. But 1 wraith on the play, I'm not considering it at all. Reasonable second hand. I mentioned earlier that a hand that doesn't let you get like a turn 2 threat down is pretty unkeepable. Obviously, the more you mulligan, the lower you have to get on that standard. So a 6 here of just like shadow, hand disruption, removal spell, bauble, functional lands is like better than a 5 that risks not having any sort of like interaction or doesn't have a threat. So take everything with a grain of salt. Basic planes on top. So my immediate thought is, oh crap, another taxes deck. But nope, just hammer time. We've got Unholy Heat to kill off something. Double Sigarda's Aid means taking aid doesn't do a lot of good for me. Their basic planes on the top means the Paladin and the Stoneforge Mystic are live. So the decision kind of comes down to, like, do I take the 2-for-1 with Stoneforge Mystic? Do I take the hammer and try to slow down so they can't go like turn 1 aid, turn 2 might hammer? Do I take the might to keep them from strapping anything up with a hammer on turn 2? And ultimately, I decided to take the Stoneforge Mystic, just like take the 2-for-1, keep them from being able to hold a bunch of hammers in hand. All right, so finding Channeler is nice. Haywire Might's good. I'm not going to make the first move because I don't want my opponent responding with a hammer. We'll offer up the trade if they want to block there. Finding the second removal spell's really good because now I can fight through like hammer, double hammer. Fight through hammer, blacksmith skill. Which hammer blacksmith skill is infinitely better for me than double hammer, because double hammer just puts pure steel closer to having metalcraft online, but blacksmith skill means they only have 1 artifact on board. They miss their 3rd land drop, so they probably can't like hammer plus something else. Gonna crack this peatland here, because if I draw a fetch land, I'd rather have like the shadow and the channeler out. Don't care about Ragavan, but I'll take the fetch. Pure steel. Maybe I could have afforded to like just not keep the fetch and try to find more interaction, but figure as long as I'm like playing out threats, that the channelers will have a decent chance of getting there. But as soon as I stop playing out threats, and my opponent gets like a clear shot in, that's when I risk dying. And then we draw another lightning bolt, so that means we get to attack in. They go to block with Ink Moth. If you don't know, Ink Moth, as soon as the turn it's played, if you turn it into a creature, it's got Summoning Sickness and it can no longer tap for mana. So in this case, like, I would just let my opponent block and then bolt post combat. So if they wanted to like block, if I went to bolt the Ink Moth and they like had a spell to cast off that, it could keep me from killing them. But if I just let them block, take 5 and then bolt post combat. There's not really a way they can stop that. But because they animated the Ink Moth on the turn it came in and it's got summoning sickness, I can just go ahead and like bolt the Ink Moth and not be afraid of anything. So kill the Ink Moth, get him for lethal. Game number 2. Boarding against Hammertime. So again, board out a bunch of like street wraiths because life total does matter. Someone in chat asked about it, asked about boarding out street wraiths. And my answer is kind of like, you already have a couple thought season and things like that. What you don't want to do is put yourself in a position where you lower your life total down to like 10 aggressively, 10 or 11, and your opponent just gets to like one shot you with a hammer. If you lower your life total to 15, 14, 13, and they hit you with a hammer, you can just play like a shadow that's bigger than whatever they've got strapped up. So you don't want to be just full of life loss effects early. It's not a race situation. You're definitely the control deck. Board out a bunch of hand disruption because everything after like turn 3, they're just playing straight off the top. So top decking hand disruption is very dead. And then Ragavan, really, really bad on the draw, but I kind of had more stuff I wanted to bring out than Ragavan. Like, I think Ragavan's better than the Inquisitions, Thought Seizes, the Street Wraiths, better than, like, the One Scourge. Board out the One Scourge because of Sanctifier on Vec. My god, do I hate that card. And the fact that they don't really have a painful mana base, so you really have to get in with aggressive 1-drops, which are getting stonewalled really easily. But I think Ragavan's better than like a bunch of these other cards. If I'm running Giganta and I'm not running Wraith, I'm more likely to board out a bunch more Ragavans. But either way. Board ends, 2 EE, 2 Alpine Moon, K Command, the 2 Terminate, Ancient Grudge, and the last one. Two Terminate, 2 Alpine Moon, K Command, Ancient Grudge, 2 Engineered Explosives, and a Turok. 1 Turok. I think the first Turok's got a reasonable amount of value. You can treat it kind of like mono white taxes, where a turn 2 Turok swinging through like Esper Sentinel, Giver of Runes, Stoneforge, Pure Steel, all that stuff is relevant. You just have to like clear out the artifact dudes, the Ornithopters, Memnites, Haywire Mites, blah blah blah. But it can also just like stand in front of a dude with a hammer and be like a repeatable chump blocker. Alright, so opening hand has got turn 1 threat, got some interaction. It's not great into Sanctifier, but we do have Tarmogoyf, and with Fetchland Bauble, Goyf outgrows Sanctifier, so I think it's reasonable enough. Opponent not playing a 1-drop is huge for us. And I get Stomping Ground because every other land in my deck except for Basic Mountain produces black. If I get Blood Crypt with this, I only have like fetch lands and a shock that produce green, or 2 shocks. So I run the risk of drawing like Swamp or Swamp Mountain, 2 more Blood Crypts that don't produce green. And of course, like the one other non-black producing land is on top. So just throw that away. I could have kept it to try to just like be able to play the Tarmogoyf, but I kind of figured with it not casting half of the spells in my hand, I'd rather just like ship it away, look for a fetch land or another shock or something. So Giver here makes me assume that they've got like a blacksmith skill. I, for one, am shocked. But we're doing this on our upkeep to try to maximize the chances of finding the second land, and we do, so. But that is part of the insanity that is Dragon's Rage Channeler. Like that turn 1 Channeler did get Delirium online 2, or online on turn 2, and filtered 5 cards into our graveyard. I didn't filter the baubles. Filtered 3, but had like the baubles get in there as well, and the Unholy Heat and stuff. So Channeler is an enabler for like Underworld Breach. Pretty huge. So Saga, Stoneforge, yep. And if you remember what I said in the Mono White Taxes matchup, I said that I hate this play of just like Stoneforge getting Cauldra. Like, I'm not saying a hammer is live. Shadow Spear, I think, is better than a hammer. But just like getting a card that is more than likely dead is a big ask. So kill the Giver, kill the Stoneforge. I do bin the second EE because I'd rather have lands than another EE. But now I've at least stranded them with a Cauldron in hand. Attack in. Play out to the board. Okay, so I could EE on 0 and run the risk of my opponent like making a construct, untapping, floating mana, and then I have to blow up the EE because I can't afford them getting Pithing Needle off that. So they're probably going to get like their full next turn with mana and a Pithing Needle or something. So instead, I'm just going to play out the Scourge and wait, because if they just like make another construct, then I can EE on my turn, blow up both constructs and the Ornithopter. If they do like this and get a Shadow Spear, this is fine, because they strap up the construct token. It becomes a 4/4. They attack in if they want to attack in. I can block with the Scourge, and the Scourge doesn't actually shrink because they gain up to 9 or 8, whatever it is, and I stay at 14, so Scourge stays at 6/6 regardless of the life that they gain. So Shadow Spear on a construct is completely fine here. So we're going to swing in with both. And this is like really just see how they block. Like, there aren't really a lot of unfavorable blocks for me. If they block with the construct on the Scourge, that's fine. I can attack with just the Dragon's Rage Channeler, but then if they just block with the Ornithopter, I'm not presenting lethal. So attacking with both gives them a chance to mess up like this, block Ornithopter on Scourge, which just means I deal my damage with Channeler and throw a Lightning Bolt to the face. Unless they march. Then we just throw the bolt anyway. Alright, you take one off the Horizon Canopy, go down to 3. But either way, like, as long as I put them down to 1, I'm pretty happy with any outcome, because then they just can't tap the canopies for life. They can attack back with the construct. That's whatever. And so yeah, that was our 4-1 league with Jund Shadow. So I mentioned that I would go through some of the changes that I would like to make. Personally, I think I'm going to swap over to Gigantha for Jund. I think just having the extra free body is a pretty substantial upgrade. So some of these things are automatically coming out just because of Gigantha. In the main, probably going to go up to a second Underworld Breach. When we did see Breach, it was pretty nice. And since we're going up to a second Breach, we want to go up to the fourth Dragon's Rage Channeler. That definitely helps out with just like maximizing a lot of our 4-ofs. And then I was thinking about what I wanted the last 2 slots to be. I've run like Ren and 6 in the past, and I don't mind Ren. I think it's a very, very solid card. Helps to make sure you hit like your land drops to play Kroxa or to keep growing your shadow, whatever the case may be. It's really good into opposing Dragon's Rage Channelers and Ragavans and stuff. I know there's a lot of people that are heavy anti-Ren, and I think that's fine. Like if you don't want to play Ren, don't play Ren. That's okay. I've had good experiences with the card, so I don't feel like I'm missing out on percentage points by playing it. But it's just an option that's there. If not Ren, maybe just go up to like the full 4 Inquisition, which I know people are very anti-Inquisition, but essentially somebody's going to be anti-everything. So play what you want to play in those spots. Could also be what I really don't like Riveteer's Charm, but if you're just dead set on that one, go crazy. Could be extra Kroxa. Just want full 4 like big game payoffs. Could also be more 1 mana interaction. Maybe you want a Fatal Push in here, or add like a Terminate to the main. I wouldn't hate adding a Terminate to the main. Maybe then just like a Fatal Push or something. Sideboard, we lose Chalice of the Void to add Gigantha, which is okay. There's less Cascade going around now. EE's good against Rhinos. You don't really see a lot of Living End. But if you're expecting a bunch of Living End, you could add an extra Grave Hate piece or 2, a couple Soul Guide Lanterns maybe. Brutality has been very underwhelming for me. So I'm probably like off of it. Otherwise, yeah, the last 2 slots, for me at least, are kind of what I'm expecting to see. If I expect a bunch of Graveyard decks, I'll run a couple Soul Guide Lanterns. If I'm expecting a bunch of like mid-range slugfests, maybe I add an extra K command, something like that. But you got some flexibility. Play what you enjoy. Otherwise, hope everybody learned something from this voiceover league. It should be up live on YouTube fairly quickly. As always, hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Stay safe. Enjoy some good food and company. We'll catch y'all back at a live stream pretty soon. Adios for now.